when you're ready.
You never know.
All right, whenever you want.
All right, thank you, sir. At this time, I'd like to call the North Canton Committee of the Whole meeting, April 5th, 2021. The time is 7 p.m. to order. Ben, would you please call the roll?
Member Fonte?
Present and here.
Member Revolt?
Here.
Member Warren?
Here.
Member Foltz?
Here.
Member Stretta?
Here.
Member Peters?
Here.
And Member Stroya?
Here.
7 present.
All right, thank you, sir. First up is Community and Economic Development. Chairman Revolt, you're up.
Thank you very much. We have a request from the administration to amend our DORA ordinance. You will see the map. This is a much reduced area that's covered. It's actually not far from what we had discussed when we adopted the DORA. Patrick, this came from the administration. Do you want to discuss this?
Yes. In looking at these events that are coming forward here shortly, I think we have a 720 Market Group event in mid-May, so about 6 weeks out. We've, working with the council clerk, have found that there's an additional permit holder in the center of town, Sapphire City. So we thought that with the bulk of the activity right here from Bachtel, say up to the library, we could shrink the district this first year of operation down to that really where all the action really is, and see how that works. And if it works well, we can keep it that way. If it grows, we can deal with it down the road. But we thought this would be a great first start. It certainly lowers the outlay for sanitary receptacles and the signage. I know we had asked for, and council graciously budgeted $27,000 for that, but we were able to secure what we needed for approximately $9,000. So we think that's a good purchase. And it would have come in less if we had expanded it all the way up anyway, but we got a very good price on these black stainless steel, black steel receptacles. So we would like to shrink it to that if council is in agreement.
Patrick, it's Dom. Hey,
Yes, sir.
So remember when we did this initially, we were saying, and Daryl talked about, and Mark, that this can be quickly adjusted, right? So This is an example of what we're talking about. And just as well as the Main Street district expands and things start happening, we can quickly adjust it down the road a little bit further.
Mm-hmm.
So
Dom, thank you. That's exactly right. Well, let me walk through a list. Mark, you're vice chairman of the committee. Do you have any observations?
Yeah, I do. I have not been supportive of this because of the cost in the past too. I mean, $27,000 for trash cans. Now we're down to $9,000. So here's my questions. A couple of this here. Sounds like we got another liquor license. Does everybody have to approve of being part of this? Like I know pubs, you can't go outside with their liquor anyways. So how can we include that? Did we ask El Rincon if they want to do this? Secondly, why are we keeping this Wednesday through Saturday? I could probably have more support for this if we did this designation when we want to. And the reason I say that is because if you do this every Wednesday through Saturday, now you got your police people, you're going to have to every Wednesday or Saturday, someone's got to be on the beat of the DORA, right? Aren't these things supposed to be paying for extra police of this all the time? And at the same point, you have to put these trash cans out every Wednesday through, or we leave them out there. And I'm not real excited about trash cans up and down Main Street, even if it's only this little piece. If you just designate special times, we know way ahead what the times are for this. This is not, rocket science. Then we can put these trash cans out when we want, rather than have these things out there all the time, just collecting whatever, and then our guys have to go empty them weekly, I would expect. So,
Hey, Mark.
yeah.
Oh, I was just like, this is part of what I'm getting at with the comment I made earlier is like,
Yeah.
you're right. What you say may be exactly true, and we can pull it back and do like what you said. But right now, we shrunk it way back to make it more manageable. Let's test it out, see how it goes. And then if it doesn't seem like it's clicking right or it looks junky or we're not feeling it, then let's back it up to what, on special occasions or whatever.
Well, that's my point. You're going to have someone have to police it every Wednesday through Saturday. Is that extra police stuff that nobody's bought into this yet? Who's going to pay for that? In the DORA legislation, it says the people that the businesses are supposed to be paying for that. Good luck with that.
Well,
So-
maybe in the beginning you won't have much of that. Really, I don't see it being
I don't see any
overwhelming.
reason why you can't just make this on special events and start this thing out. I think it's a little bit overkill right now for something we don't even have going on. Now, I understand around the Hoover district, someday that gets going, that's going to be, hopefully that will be more the kind of thing that we want like this. But so anyways, Daryl asked for my opinion. That's my opinion. I'd like to make this only special during special events time. That way we don't have to have constant police every week and trash cans out every week when we got nothing going on for months at a time.
All right, so I would like to respond to a couple,
Sure.
points there just to make sure that we're accurate. Yes, we have contacted the restaurants. They were in support of the DORA. The PAVs, yes, they would be able to take their adult beverage off-site. That's the purpose of the DORA, so that people could go out with it. Right now, that has to be, as it stands now, that has to be consumed inside. The police department, we've approved a safety plan, but the safety plan doesn't involve having people walk a beat, hiring extra cops, bringing people in on overtime to do that. So, and that's not done in any other DORA either. But we do have response mechanisms that we can do there. As far as the trash cans, bringing out, yes, I agree with Mark in this sense, is that we would be putting them out and they would be staying out. So that's not something that we're going to pick them up, set them aside, bring them back out. We're not going to do that. We would be putting them out when the DORA season opens when the DORA season closes.
All right, let's move on down the list. Dom, I think we've heard from you. Stephanie, do you have you want to weigh in on this at all? Preference?
Nope, not on this one.
Okay.
I like the new map.
Yeah, I do too. Doug, Jeff, Matt?
I'm good.
Yeah, it's false. Yeah. My only way in is hopefully we develop some kind of activities to utilize the door other than obviously the concept's not get a beer El Con and walk up to the other restaurants, without something else going on, whether it's our park or the Hoover complex. I mean, these are the first steps, but I mean, Mark makes good points, but I also want us to have the flexibility to say this is going to happen at some point where it's a bigger venue than just, obviously, I think that's what we're all thinking, walking between restaurants with an open beer. That has to be the focus or it's not going to work.
Okay.
And that, maybe I'm stating the obvious here, but
All right.
needs
I was just saying, again, this is ebb and flow. We can kind of move and groove.
Yeah.
But the thing is we're trying to build our tool chest. And this is one of the little extra things. It's not the major thing. It's just an added amenity. You know what I'm saying? So to give these small businesses that got abused all last year through this simple little COVID exercise, we want to make sure they know we're doing something as a city to try to help these small businesses in our small district.
To Member Foltz's point, I can say that I've been contacted by the chamber and the library asking me questions about, we'd like to do, these events this summer. How can we advertise that the DORA is available for these events? So, for example, the library is hoping to do their concert series during the summer, and they would like to advertise, go to the Howlin' Bird and get a glass of wine and walk up
Okay.
to our concert.
Okay. Hey, let's do this. Yeah, that's the point. So go ahead.
That's
I'm sorry.
the point.
This is Troy. I agree with the cut down map. And I think you kind of have to put hours out there to show prospective businesses that it's active. I mean, why have a DORA if it's not going to be active? I think you have to at least show the ability for it to be, taking place during certain hours in certain
Right.
days.
Matt, not to mention we have a communication breakdown is where we struggle to try to better communicate with our constituents and our business owners. And this is a prime example. We need to be consistent with our message and test it out.
I agree.
All right, let's do this then. I think the consensus of the group is to proceed with the language as presented. Do I have four to proceed? I believe I do.
Yep.
But I'm going to ask the clerk to do this. Place on one of our September council of the whole meetings a quick DORA review so we get a snapshot. Let's just see where we are. So we'll have
Good idea.
6 months of operation. Let's see where we are. We'll have a formal opportunity to gauge whether it's been successful or not. We can identify if there are any hiccups or anything. It'll give us a chance to do it. So Ben, if you would pick a date in sometime in early September, that would be wonderful.
Okay.
That's a good idea, Daryl.
Okay.
We do still need a motion and a vote if you.
Yeah, let me move that we place this on the agenda. I'll move.
Destroy a second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries.
All right, very good. All right. Let's move on to item B, which is our second century zoning. This is the code. We've had an opportunity to work on this a little bit. We've got some input from members of council. As I indicated to a couple of you, what I'd like to do tonight is see if we have any additional suggestions or questions. And I'll walk through the list. And then what I'd like to do is, following that discussion, place this back on the agenda in 2 weeks to see if we have any more questions or suggestions for the language. We've had a pretty productive conversation so far. Members have taken advantage of our work sessions. So with that, let me start with Vice Chairman Soretta to see if he has anything new that he'd like to add. For today.
Or does this not include what we went through? I mean, we had a great session at City Hall, I thought, with with Pat and the administration and the guys that were from the people that are putting this together, the consultants. So I had a lot of different things with that. But are you asking for more than that right now?
Yeah, I'm asking. I don't want to revisit that conversation. Right.
Yeah.
I'm just asking you, is there anything, Mark, that comes to mind since then that needs
I have one
an answer?
Yeah, I've had one question. I'm sorry I didn't bring it up when we were at there, but on page 3, the schedule permitted office, including administrative, medical, business, and professional. And it is under here on page 3, but I think it was in the central area there. It said on the upper floors. Well, most medical things are not on upper floors. You've got a lot of handicapped people and older people. That might be kind of something that we might want to look at.
Okay, good catch.
Hey, how about an elevator? We got elevators?
Sure. But when you talk urgent cares and anything administrative like that, just to restrict that doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. Those are good paying jobs. We want those anywhere you want to put those. So medical and office supply or office, administrative, medical, business professionals, It had just the upper floor on the Main Street Central. So maybe because we don't have enough room, I'm not sure, but if some new building went in, it might, and there's no reason to restrict it. It's just upper
Yeah.
floors.
Good
Okay,
catch.
Pat, do you have,
Point.
or Marty, do you have any insight?
Are we thinking retail at all, guys, or what?
No, so this is that medical. We're asking the
Okay.
question about medical. Okay. All right, very good. Dom, do you have anything to add?
I was just, this is something that I just was thinking about when we were reflecting back on when PAVs came and Acme wanted to do the light poles, and we have a limit of 20 feet. But, in green, they did a 30-foot pole with the LEDs that are down light, were really nice, streamlined, efficient. And we weren't able to accommodate them, which triggered the MSB before we went the whole 9 yards. So the question is there should be a provision in there somewhere that if we're in a commercial to commercial atmosphere, that they should be able to go 10 feet taller to be able to show more distance and more collection of light, so they have less cost in material. And it would be a win-win because it would save energy, it would be more up to date, and it would save the business owners money too, because, we would be accommodating. Do you guys remember that Acme thing when they wanted to do that 3 years ago?
Yep.
Yeah. Marty, do you
and
have
I went up to green, and if you did, I think a couple of us might have went up to green to look, and they really look good. And the issue is flooding, too much floodlights, and the way these were streamlined, they were very nice. And I think we should have a 10-foot provision there. We can go to 30.
Okay, let's take a
And
look.
I'm sorry, my mic was muted, and I wanted to respond. I agree with Mark on that was a good catch.
It's a great catch. Okay, so we'll make that change.
The lighting.
What do we need in terms of Dom's question about lighting, Pat?
We'll Marty, myself, and Ben will get in touch with the consultant and drill down on what is there, and then we report back to council
Next week or next council of the whole.
I can send an email or something to you guys.
Okay.
ahead of time.
Hey, Daryl. Hey, Daryl.
Yes.
If I could say something on this, regarding the lights, I would agree with Dom. I did go up there and look at the Acme up in green, and it looks great. It really does. And the light is not overwhelming. It's not intrusive on the neighbors. I think that would be a good add as well. And Dominic is right. It reduces the cost of materials as well. You don't need as many lights.
Okay.
Lumber.
Well, I'll tell you what, if
170.
that lighting is softer and it makes Dom look better after dark, I'm all for it.
Hey, not only
Okay.
me, Daryl, it makes you look 10
This
years
isn't
younger.
Hollywood.
Hey,
So
let
you
me
look
tell
like
you what,
about maybe 50 with the light.
It's going to take at least 20 years off my face then.
Man,
Okay, so Dom, that's what we're going to paddle look
Thank
at
you.
this. He'll get back to us. Do you have anything else?
No, that's it.
Okay, Steph, your turn. Anything you want to touch on at this point?
No, I'm good. I thought our session was pretty new and made the suggestions then.
Perfect.
But I agree with the lighting. We
Yes.
talked about that a long time ago.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. I think that message is loud and clear. Doug,
Yeah.
do you have anything on?
Thank you, Darren, and thanks for putting it on again in 2 weeks. I did hear from a constituent that's concerned about that's something we should look at. The Charlotte property zoned north side of Portage is zoned single family. I think the new maps reflect that as P&I with existing housing is now. The south side, as we know, is 2-family and single family. So I think there's a concern about the rest of those residential houses there from Hillcrest east to the old school there, or Mary Evans Kindergarten Center. Why does zoning change now? I mean, how's that going to be addressed? Right now it's, like I said, it's zoned single family. So that's the question.
Are you talking on the north side of Portage, which would be the back side of the school property?
Yes, north side of Portage.
Yeah, well, many of those are rentals too. And I guess the way that the map was being drawn, we were just really trying to take, what was in essence a city block, so to speak, easily defined by, a boundary, and that, 10 of the 11 and a half acres there are P&I for the school. And it was just trying to make that all together. I talked about this with Martin earlier today, and so we're going to go back and take a look at that. We're going to take a deep drill. We're going to talk with the, we've already spoken with the constituent, and we're going to pinpoint exactly which properties we're talking about. And but our intent was not to do anything on the south side of Portage or west of Hillcrest.
Right.
Try to keep it confined to that school property. But yeah, so that's something that could be changed. Our intent was to not have an adverse consequence to the homeowners. We actually were hoping that we would create more value for their property. So we're going to go back and look at that and we'll report back.
All right, I appreciate that. Thank you, Pat. That's the answer I was looking for.
Okay,
Carol, thank you.
very good. Okay, you're welcome, Doug. Jeff, anything that jumps out at you?
No, I'm good. Looks good.
Okay. Now, I know somebody's being driven crazy by tax time. I hesitate to ask, but Matt, is there anything you want to opine about here?
No, I'm good. Everything was covered in the work session, so I'm great with it.
Okay. All right. Administration, do you have anything to add at this point?
No, sir.
All right. Well, then we'll place this on the agenda in 2 weeks. We'll see what else we collect. And then I think the goal will be authorize some legislation, a first reading at that time, if that's agreeable. So we're not moving it off to legislation this week. Back on the agenda in 2 weeks.
Okay.
Sounds good.
All right, let's go to the repeal of the existing Main Street Business District. That's a pretty routine piece of legislation. That's the companion for item 3B. Administration, do you have anything to add at this time?
No.
Okay, then we'll just tuck this into 3B or along with 3B, and we'll bring it back in 2 weeks. And if anything's popped up, we'll ask. Maybe Doug's question might find a home in that conversation. And then item 3D is the new zoning map itself, which creates the 5 districts. Are there any questions or comments about the new zoning map? And again, this is actually the companion for 3B in the code, which has the 5 districts.
And to Doug Foltz's concern, that will be, we look into that, and that it may require a change in the zoning map so that you have.
Okay. All right. So we'll be back with that
Pat,
as well.
Patrick, quick question. How long has this
Yes,
been
sir.
in the making now?
2 years.
Well, here we go, man. Let's wrap this puppy up.
Okay. Well, we'll get it done right. Okay. Is there anything else that we need to discuss with relationship to item 3B, C, or D?
No.
Okay. Keep the questions and suggestions coming over the next 2 weeks, and we'll be ready to go in 2 weeks then. I think that's it, Mr. President.
All right. Daryl, thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Next up is Finance and Property, Chairwoman Waring. You're up.
Okay. Gina and I talked today, and we do have a couple of changes on a couple different things we need to look at. Gina, do you want to talk about, we wanted to talk about the $20,000 donation for the master plan and increasing that for the Dogwood Park project. And then we needed to look at the 3.36 million in funds and maybe put that a little bit on hold because we just don't know what those funds are actually going to be used for. Are we going to get them? And are we going to distribute? What does that mean? And what does that look like? And I think Gina and Patrick are going to be getting on a call to hopefully explain that a little bit more. Gina, what else do you want to comment on that?
Yes, you're absolutely right. We wanted to get ahead of, so that we could have the 3 readings and be able to start spending the American Rescue Plan Act funds when they came in. But after reading a little bit more of the guidelines, which are still being defined and detailed as far as what governments can invest in, the focal point is infrastructure, but they haven't exactly been defined yet. So we kind of want to step back. We actually have until the end of December of 2024 to spend all of the money. So we have time, and we didn't want to miss on the 3 readings. We'll bring that back to you whenever we have identified some projects that are eligible going forward. And also, we don't know how much we're getting. I think we're supposed to get around 50%, and within 60 days, but then it may be a year before we get the other half of that. So we'll keep you up to date on that. As far as the park expansion project, we have carryover funds in that number that was presented to you, consisting of $50,000 that was actually for Bitzer Park. So we'd like to remove that from this donation, or I'm sorry, from this appropriation amendment. So the 329,160.36 becomes 279,160.36, and that will allocate the rest of the funds to finish the Dogwood Park project for 2021. Those were the 2 amendments we wanted to change on what was presented for you.
Any other questions? Okay. All right, I move that we put that on the agenda then.
I'll second that. Mr. Revolt will second.
All in
Thank
favor,
you.
say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, motion carries. All right, thank you, Steph. Next up, we have Street and Alley Committee, Chairman Fonte.
Yes, this is something we've been talking about for a long time. Mark and I have had a lot of conversations about the sidewalk. So I think now's the time to make it a reality. So I talked to administration a little bit to see if we can do a little hybrid or a update on the legislation. So here's kind of my thinking, and then we can open it up to discuss. So we got the Main Street Business District. We got some tools in the tool bag. So we're starting to build the corridor in the sense that, people that want to come and do business in North Canton, we're going to be more friendly. We're going to have things ready for them so they can thrive, over the next, few years, right? So we want to make sure, we want people to be able to walk comfortably, stroll comfortably, ride, whatever we do. So I'd say the first thing I think we should do is we talked a little bit about the co-op program, and then some things that we might just do on our own if the money's there. And, and then there's some rules that we have for areas that don't have sidewalks that if they meet 2 of the 3 criterions, then we can, if we have the money to go ahead and do that. So like usually each little pad of concrete that you see on the sidewalk is like 5 by 5. So it's like 25 square foot. And if we had more volume type business being done, you have 3 options. You have, sometimes it's just slightly lifted and you can grind the edges. You can actually use a pump up service instead of replacing it. Or you might have somewhere maybe $250 a pad to replace it, depending on the volume of it, right? And so here's my thinking, we have 4 quadrants in the city. So I'd like to see more of an aggressive plan, starting with the spine first, or the backbone of the city, which is the Main Street Business District. Let's go ahead and address that and see if we can get all those sidewalks taken care of right away or as soon as the money is available. The second thing is we have to do a better job communicating to the constituents that we do have a co-op program, if they're aware of it, and if they choose to want to share it 50-50 if the money's there and they follow the basic criteria. So I think as a city, we need to make a line item for either grants and or a budget, kind of like streets and alleys. We would have an area starting in the budget that we put so much aside, like say 25,000 to start. And then, we, between the water bill, the newsletter, social media, website, and other ways, we get the word out of what we're doing so everybody understands it. And then in a year, if that doesn't work, then we just take the bull by the horns and we go ahead and we just start replacing stuff as we need it. So I do the Main Street first, and then we do the connecting streets that need it. And then we add maybe up one side of Glenwood, down Lindy Lane, connect 7th Street up, and we start really aggressively going after this. And then what we do is then we do quadrants A, B, C, 1, 2, 3, 4. of going through, like, say, whoever the council members are, or council at large, or the administration, if they notice things, or the code enforcement people, we go ahead and, we hire a contractor, and have them just kind of take care of either having it pumped up, ground, or replaced. And there's some sidebar stuff like trees, utilities, and things like that. But I'm just saying, broad strokes wise, I would like to see something really happen starting now. So that's opened up to whoever would like to chat about it. Thank you.
Yeah, Dom, this is Peters here. I do have one comment regarding the sidewalks, and I don't know if it particularly goes to what exactly you're saying, but it occurs to me and what Gina said, the American Rescue Plan money that we're getting, a lot of that is for infrastructure. I'm assuming sidewalks could be included in that. That would be great. And if that's the case, that eases some of the restrictions that we've had in the past as far as funding these. And one of the other thoughts, we're in the midst of the Dogwood Park remodel and expansion, highlighted by a playground that is inclusive to handicap,
right,
or folks that have limited accessibility. However, we don't have a sidewalk on 7th Street for people to get there. They'd have to be in the street. So,
right.
I mean, just a thought, but yeah.
No, I know we were talking about that and we put that on pause, but again, we can kind of systematically decide the priority. I always think the main streets first, because that's what we're focusing on to create our main opportunity for the future. We've been talking about this for years. So let's make that happen. Absolutely. And then we look at the connecting streets next, and then we go through the neighborhood zones, the 4 wards, and we go ahead and take care of those. Now, obviously, the whole idea is not to eat it up with taxpayer money, but maybe there's special grants. Rob can talk on that. And then maybe it could be the assistance money we're talking about could be a possibility. Or we just work it into the budget, or possibly a little piece of the gas tax or street tax or sewer tax or any tax as we raise some of these fees. Maybe a piece of that can go into the pot, because again, this is for the youth, for the elderly, for the people that have disabilities, wheelchairs, strollers, whatever. We don't want to stumble and hurt ourselves. So I'm just saying, I think we should get dialed in. And so that's really what my goal is. Instead of us not being able to do it, let's make it happen this time. Let's get her done.
Hey, Dom, if I could interject, and I don't want to interrupt real quick here, but you said something for the folks listening at home. You mentioned a sewer tax, and I'm assuming you're probably referring to the rate increases that we've been discussing. That isn't a tax. And we couldn't use that money for anything other than sewer, water, just as a point of reference. So
yeah. Well, I know, like, what we've been replacing the infrastructure. We have, like, I don't know, 300-400 we did probably in the last 2.5 years, which are the sewer grates where all the drains go. And we've been putting the precast in where the salt ate away at the bricks. Part of that could be tied into the sidewalks. I don't know what the latitude or longitude is. That's more maybe Marty or Pat or the mayor, or whoever has the ideas. I'm just saying, I just want to make something happen. So I want to see if we can make that happen.
Okay.
So we'll get creative, however we need to do it.
Hey, Dom, this is Stroya. Jeff, I definitely agree with your point on 7th Street, especially with the Dogwood Park coming, the expansion coming there. Have you guys talked about a walkability study?
I would say Mark walks around everywhere. I'd say he's our study. Mark, what do you have to say about it?
I do too, but here's my point. Like, if it gets to the point of, picking and choosing, you might want to consider the points around the schools where the kids are walking to, or the main roads that are going to be walked more before some, trivial, and I'm not saying trivial, but some other back sidewalk that's not going to get used as much. Is there
that's what I was saying, Matt. Like the main street is the main thing, right?
Sure.
And then the next thing would be, if you look at the section 902.1, it says the city may cause sidewalks to be installed, and if funds are available, if it meets 2 of the following criteria: school, facility, government, parks, so on.
I like that.
It's kind of all in there. And basically, Ben, when we talked, Ben, you can chime in too, since we talked about this. We had 4 criterions. We got now 3, so it makes it a little more doable. And then on top of that, we made a hybrid. So we got the co-op program with the citizens if they want to, like if they're a property owner and their sidewalks look like crap and whatever, and they want to see if they can petition the city to work with them on a 50-50 split. That's one option. The other option is like the 2 of the 3 criterions, which would be kind of like the parks, the 7th Street, Lindy Lane, up the street, those kinds of things. But I thought, like the city, since we're investing so much energy for the last 2 years on MSB, the 5 districts, I mean, for me, that's like where we hope to have a lot of activity there and also help the businesses out. And then all the connectors to that would be, maybe the second, or maybe the schools would be second, or the parks, or whatever the connectors are there. And then we go from there based on how the money is.
Hey, Dom.
That sounds good.
Hey, Dom, Doug Foltz. Hey, what changed on this ordinance then? Are we,
if I can chime in and piggyback off Dominic, what this ordinance before you tonight specifically addresses is the cost sharing program.
Okay.
So what Dominic means by a hybrid is
2.02.
Yes, a hybrid between
0.02. Okay. All right.
Treating it as a nuisance and having a voluntary cost sharing program. So this would tie into the property maintenance code that you guys are currently considering, and there's a provision in there to create essentially an agreement with the city to abate whatever the nuisance is without receiving a citation. So this would allow for those agreements to agree to cover 50%.
Yeah. And thank you, Ben, because that's what I wanted to get to. I mean, I've been a proponent of fix our old ones first before we put new ones in. And if this is the vehicle that's going to get that done, and I'll just use Woodrow, there's some up there that are fully 2-3 inches above the existing next sidewalk. I mean, they're trip hazards. They need cleaning.
Hey, Doug. So part of the thing that I was saying is, you could actually drill a couple holes and have like I'll give you an example. So the pumper upper company, for example, my sidewalk's uneven, right? So I pay to have them come out, and they basically, instead of me replacing it, they pump it up for like a fraction of the cost. They back it up for 10 years. So in some cases, that might be a better way to use our dollars to get more bang for the buck, right? So all I'm saying is like we should have all things on the table and prioritize it based on Main Street business and then the connecting streets that are like the main streets. And then we go from there. And the cost sharing thing is just to make it open as long as we communicate it to the constituents. And again, this is where, with COVID and everything, I mean, we're doing as good as we can. We got the website, the Facebook, we got all these, the newsletter, we got all these things we're trying to communicate with. It's just a matter, are they getting the message? Just like the one gentleman said he didn't know about dogwood and that back and forth with that, right? So again, this is one of these things we're going to do the best we can to get the message out and really try hard to make sure people are aware of this. If they want to take advantage of the co-op program or the hybrid program or whatever you want to call it, in addition to we have, like the schools and the parks, there's already language in there to address that. It's just that we could do grinding, like say in some cases over on Woodrow, if the roots are lifting it up so much, we may have to, like I said, if you take it out and the trees get damaged and they think the tree's going to die, then the homeowner is going to have to take care of the tree. And then we can kind of work with them on the sidewalk and things like that. So it's kind of like a case by case basis, but let the opportunity be known publicly and make sure we got all the means to do it. And then if the constituents don't want to do it or they don't get it, then we can go a little different direction, maybe next time.
Yeah, I concur. Dom, it is a tree, and there needs to be an educational program. With AEP's easement, they've removed a lot of the trees, or they've cut them back to the point they should be removed.
Yeah, exactly.
They used to look so beautiful, and now
they're just ugly, and they don't fit on the north side of Woodrow. They just don't. They need to be in the residents' yards. The south side's fine because there's no utility lines right on the south side. It's all on the north side. But the problem is a lot of trees. And, I walk that all the time. I get around walking, neighbors do, we talk about it. And the trees need to come out. There just needs to be, unfortunately, Dominion came through, I think it was last year, the year before, and they did a nice job of just relaying the utilities. At that point, we missed an opportunity just to tear all the sidewalks up and redo them all and get the trees out of the way where they were hazards. It didn't happen. That's nobody's fault. That's just utility driven maintenance work versus planned, city infrastructure improvement. So I hear what you're saying. I agree with that. And but we got to address these. So either there's violations that need to be looked at, and here's your vehicle to help. We're going to give you 50% to do it. I mean, you can't get any better than that right now. So that if that's the vehicle, I'm all in
Doug,
favor.
I think you got a hybrid. So that's one of them. The other one is we can make some decisions based on 2 of the 3 criterions, right? Which if you look at the legend, one, it talks about what we're really looking for there. I mean, it's pretty well spelled out. I was just saying we can integrate, it's up to the city to figure out if pumping would be an option to consider, if grinding might be an opportunity, or just removing it. So that would be at the discretion of whoever the expert is, right? I'm just saying, I want to see something happen after the several years I've been around. We've been talking about it, but now I want to see something get done. So I'm just saying, Mark, maybe, you can move it to the floor, and let's see if we can get something put together. Let's get this thing passed. Let's make it happen. Rob, is there any grants out there?
I'm sorry, Don. Who are you asking?
Rob.
I was asking if Rob's on the call. If Rob's on the call, if Rob has any suggestions. He's an engineer. He knows what's going on.
Probably look at how Public Works Commission is part of a roadway improvement.
Perfect.
But that would be part of a roadway improvement.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, when we do the roadway, can we integrate the sidewalks into the roadway improvement?
We can. I mean, as long as we can cover the cost.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, if we get a contractor that we could give a bit of work to, I bet you we can get that cost way down. I'd imagine it's probably about $10 a square foot.
It's like anything else, economy of scale. We got a great sidewalk to Maple because it was a sidewalk job versus a few pads here or there on a water job. So.
Right. Well, I'm seeing the increased cost, lumber's up 170%. And now we got all these material costs going up. And I just know if we wait another year or two, we're going to be paying a lot more than we pay right now.
Tom, a couple of things, if I may. Good lead on this.
Please.
The discussion has been great. And Jeff, I do like that idea of using some of those infrastructure funds to maybe get where we want to go to. But, after reading this over a couple times over the last week, it has, for new sidewalks is where I'm at right now. It has these 3 criteria. Why do we have this 3 criteria rather than us just using common sense and put them where we want, first of all? Because when I look at or at least I think, and I think the majority of us agree, where our new sidewalks probably look in the future need to be, Glenwood, Lindy Lane, 7th Street. 7th Street probably is not where I'm including this, but there are sidewalks that just end mysteriously sometimes, which I think are just kind of silly. But when I look at Glenwood and Lindy Lane, does that, if you begin with the end in mind, does that classify under any of these 3 or maybe one?
Yes. Yes. I would say sidewalks. Yes, absolutely. And also traffic counts.
Traffic count, but what about the other ones? Lindy Lane,
Hey, look, you got what goes to the park, and it also goes up to the school, the middle school for now.
I don't know.
The middle school's right up Maple, and it's right up Glenwood. You see kids walking in the middle of the street all the time.
Rob, do you see that working on this? I mean, I'm trying to get a legal aspect of this. I see that number 2 works. Or Pat, do you see if this works for the ones we want to do maybe someday? At least I think we want to do Glenwood and Lindy Lane, or finish Lindy Lane.
Right, so I'll address that specific question as to not take up your time. I do have other comments, but they can come later. But yeah. I think the thing that the council needs to keep in mind, when sidewalks mysteriously end in the thing, is that it's still a property owner's right to either have or not have the sidewalk on their property. And many property owners don't want a sidewalk. And it could be that where that sidewalk was ended mysteriously is that property owner said, no, I don't want a sidewalk in my property. And where are you then? Well, then we have to acquire right of way. I don't want to sell the right of way. I don't want to. Then we're going to court to try to force somebody through some type of eminent domain action, which would be really, different for trying to get a sidewalk in as opposed to widen the street or something like that. But this stuff takes a long time to do, to acquire right of way, have the money to buy the right of way, and then be able to have it all done. And this is the problem that we ran into on 7th Street. Yeah. I optimistically worked that, thinking that I could get to, just for the sheer will, overcome it. There's 2 property owners on that street that do not want sidewalks in their yard.
Pat, is this the one where you asked them they had to pay half of it though, or we pay the whole thing?
They don't want it at all. We would pay it all. Okay. We were paying it all, and they don't want it.
So I thought we had a right of way anyhow, so many feet off the curb.
It varies by street. So you go down,
say
Apple
Glenwood.
Road or Everhard, and it's you have like 3 feet. You go to some other streets, there's no uniformity. Let's just put it that way.
Okay, so can we fix that? Or like, say for example, Glenwood and Lindy Lane. Let's use those 2 because those are 2 busy roads that we think would maybe be good connectors. If we were doing sidewalks, I say the main street first, and then we go from there. But let's say that is the case, 7th Street. So what would be the easement? I imagine if we have I don't know, I'm looking at my house, for example, there's no sidewalks on Fair Oaks, which you don't really need them, I don't think, because we're not going anywhere. But I know that the gas company comes in, the electric company comes in, they all kind of can dig up my yard. They never ask my permission, they just do it. So
Dom,
they have a utility easement. That's different than what we're doing.
Dom,
we don't have any of that?
Dom?
That's what I'm thinking. I thought we had something going on there. We have sewer and water.
Dom, this is Daryl.
Go ahead. Go, Daryl.
Pat's correct. You need 2 things to put in a sidewalk. Well, you need 3 things. You need 2 essential elements to build a sidewalk. The first is you need right of way. When we built the sidewalk in Everhard Road, we actually had people who did not want to provide right of way. And if you look carefully at the Everhard Road sidewalk from maybe Westfield East to Main Street, that sidewalk's inordinately narrow because we simply didn't have much right of way to work with. And in fact, one guy up in Surrey Hill held us up for over a year on an easement. The second thing you've got to have, and this is, if you've got the right of way, you can build the sidewalk. You just have to have the will to impose it. And we have expressed as a government ambivalence about imposing sidewalk on individuals. Pat's point.
You don't want to enforce.
You can go out and do it on 7th Street right now if you've got the right of way. You can build that sidewalk.
I got you. So here's my point. If there was a benefit to having a sidewalk, because we got a lot of changes coming that are going to help the city. We have 7 miles of footprint to work our city, so the burden isn't as high on the citizens, because you got businesses now producing income and creating wares and services where additional dollars are coming in. So everything kind of leads to that spine. You know what I'm saying? Like you got the spine and the backbone coming through. So I'm just saying, I think if people understood the benefit to it, how it's not going to hurt them, it's going to help them, I don't understand why they wouldn't go along with it unless they feel big brothers like smash them in a hole and say, hey guys, we're going to take your land, or we're going to, cause you anxiety. People don't want to, they're tired of fighting. They want peace and harmony, man. So I would think if they're educated about what the benefits are, maybe they'd be more open-minded, as long as, you don't force them to pay. But in the voluntary ones, they might want to co-op with it to get an upgraded sidewalk.
Some people just don't want to maintain it, Dom. I mean, everybody lives on 7th Street knows that there's a safety issue and there's a need for it, but they just don't want to do it. And unfortunately, they control that until we develop the right of way.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't see many people shoveling sidewalks in the city on Main Street. I don't see them doing it on Everhard. But I think there was a reason to do it. like if there were things happening and people were walking more and driving less, which is the idea to go back to what we used to do, then I would see some benefit there and they would probably see it too. And again, there's a lot of older folks in the community that's going to transition to younger people. These younger people want to walk everywhere and do all that kind of stuff. So we're looking not just for us and for right now, we're looking down the road, but I think the whole goal with the building the MSB and all the things where we've been working on a few years is to create a better place for the long view, right? And so that's all I'm saying is I just think, it's like government, they always look at us as moving slow at a snail's pace. Can't we pick up the pace or figure out a way to solve the problem? There's always roadblocks in everything we do. Our work begins when a roadblock starts, right? We want a solution. We don't want to be the problem. We want to be the solution to the problem. So I'm just saying, how do we do that?
Hey, Dom, this is Daryl. In the years that I've served, I don't think I've ever had a constituent call and say, I want a sidewalk in front of my house, to Matt's point.
Maybe they don't know they can.
We had to force the sidewalks on Everhard. We had to force it. We just did it because pedestrians were wearing a path through the front lawns or walking in the street. It was inherently dangerous.
Correct.
So, I good luck selling it, but I'm not sure, to Matt's point, that homeowners are necessarily responsive to the message.
Okay, well, I'm just saying, I think it's worth a shot again. We'll just put a better message together. I think our messages need to be all kind of pushing in the same direction to see if we can get any interest. And if not, then, I know I gave it a try. And if it's a dead duck, it's a dead duck.
Okay.
So, I would like to see this ordinance come to fruition and, maybe we see how it goes. And if nothing happens, then we're no further ahead than what we've been the last several years. It's same thing.
Does this create the line item to start having the funds distributed? I mean, is there something we can do to, even if it's $2,000 to create that line item, can we do that?
I say create the line item. Let's get something in it. We talked about
I agree. Yeah.
Like
Guys,
put in 10,000.
Gals, listen. Policy, process, people, funding. Policy, process, people, funding. That's that's the formula that you have to follow to make this successful. So you've nibbled on the policy. I think it needs fine-tuned. I think because if it's not fine-tuned, the process, people, funding won't work. So, there's a number of issues here. Yes, we have had money in line items for sidewalks or cement. We just put it in for cement and then you can use it on, whatever it is. It doesn't have to be that specific, but it can be. That's okay to do that. But I think that because the policy was, not really defined over the generations that councils have been talking on this is why it kind of falls apart and doesn't happen. So, the questions that I think need to be worked out, and I'm willing to help, do it, work the process, people, funding part out. But on the policy side, so, when I just look at this, the ordinance, the proposed as it's written now. So there's some questions that come up on the process. So for instance, when it says that the city may agree to cover 50% of the costs. Who's the city? Who makes that call? What are the criteria that says may agree? I don't have to agree, and I don't have to go to 50%. What are the criteria? Are there criteria in something like that? In a macro picture, I have expressed questions to all, to most of you on this that I knew were working on it, which is, have we run this by legal? My concern has always been that, and as it would be with this plan, someone's going to get a citation for a bad sidewalk, and they can fix it on their own. That's one option. They can, if they don't have the money, I guess they can enter into a corrective action plan. And then once in that corrective action plan, what's the corrective action? Who monitors it for what period of time? If there is supposed to be an approach that we use, should we grind it? Should we pump it up? Should we replace it? The process, who is making that decision and what criteria are they using to make the decision? Because I'm sure all of your intent is to be fair and equal to everybody. If the money runs out and we're continuing to issue citations because it says that it's based on how much subject to availability of city funds, what if there aren't any more city funds? Are we supposed to stop issuing citations? If we get a citation, to somebody say, well, just hold me over till next year so that I can get in on the front end when the city has money again. It creates a lot of these questions, and I think we should be asking more background research on this. And, that starts with a legal review. And then I can work on getting the processes together. You've already addressed, the funding for now that you want to do something. And then it's just figuring out what people are doing what. But I know you want to do it. You've been wanting to do it. I think just in the past, it's a policy has been put in place, whether it's good or not good. I just don't think the next steps have occurred from what I've seen in the past, 15 years, which is, okay, how do you implement the policy? How does it work?
Okay.
All those details. That's what I think you want me to do.
All right, Pat. So you're right. So let's have legal look at it. And can we bring it back very soon and see if we can actually, do that process you were just talking about? I'm not the expert. I just know if like in the real estate industry I'm in, when I look at concrete, I'm not the master at it, but I can pretty much tell if it needs pumped up or replaced just from my experience. But an expert would even know more, right? So I'm not saying I'm the expert. I'm just saying I think it's a doable thing. We don't have to make it complicated, but we want to make it right for the city. And I understand the money thing. And if this takes off, once you fix the cement, it isn't like you have to fix it like blacktop. It's good for a long time, like 40 years, if it's done properly. So it's kind of like those storm sewers that we're replacing, those should last for quite a long time now that we're getting them all replaced, so that's the main infrastructure. And I look at the sidewalks for walkability is a critical, point. That's really all I'm saying. So however we need to do that, I just like to do it. So whatever we can do to move it forward.
I will be there to help you. I will help.
All right. All right, Pat. So can we have maybe you or Ben just run it by legal and see if we can clean it up and make it more user friendly or what?
I think if we get that, and my concerns could be all wet. I'm not a legal expert either. But these are things that I just think about. So if we get all the things worked out on the legal end, then it's just process of implementation. How do you do it? And
well, I'm saying let's keep it simple as possible. We got enough complications in our life. Let's just make it simple because our real goal is walkability, and getting people out using the services of the businesses, which is kind of creates good income for the city, takes less pressure off the constituents because then they don't have to pay more and more taxes. As long as we got enough money coming in, everybody's happy, right?
Those are good ideas. Let's take a look at this and try to clean it up. I have this big question, which I mentioned, 902.01. Do we want to put sidewalks where we think we want to? And I don't think that they count under these three rules. So let's take a look at that also.
Okay. And I think, like you say, case by case, some streets have wider easements, some don't. And then we have to know what we can do and what we have to get approval on from the homeowners. And I think if the homeowners are educated and we present it in the right fashion, I think they would be pretty excited about it. But I know
and to Mark's point, I think, maybe Ben could do a little deep dive on that 90201. My recollection back in the day is that, yes, there was a fourth criteria, but there was not unanimity on council and on putting sidewalks in, and they came up with these criteria to try to limit themselves. That was the compromise reached. And I know that when we looked at it last, we took out number 4 to broaden it. But to Mark's point, why maybe you don't need it at all, but maybe Ben could look at some of the history on this ordinance and kind of see when it took place.
Okay, well, it's good discussions. Like I said, I just want to try to make something come to fruition.
Good job, Dom. I mean, you have support, definitely. It's just the semantics of it, but good work.
Let's not make it more complicated than it needs to be. That's
Agreed.
the problem.
Yeah, and I think that was Mark's point too. I think Mark's saying that. Is that what your point is, Mark? Because I think that's
just common sense. Why do we have these three things? Let's put where we think if there's a park there, we put it there. If we, why do we have these three rules for, to make it really kind of, over the edge on things? So we can look at that.
Agreed.
Okay, guys. Thanks for your ears, and ladies.
Thanks, Dom.
All right. Thank you, Dom. All right. Next up, last but not least, water, sewer, and rubbish. Chairman Soretta.
Rubbish. That's true. Okay, so probably Gino probably have to weigh in this, or possibly Pat here. This is and this is in other communities too. I know just by my own experience here. I believe we're trying to switch the ownership of the responsibility of the bills to the owner of the property, not just the person who lives in the property. Someone want to take that and move on with it? I totally agree with it, but go ahead, Pat. Is that?
Thank you, Mark. So this was an item on our agenda in conversations, even going back to the previous finance director, and it's been on my radar. And then I know Gina has also discovered it from being a year in the position and seeing how everything works. So we got together to talk about it, and then turned it over to legal to get opinions on, here's the issue. So you take for multi-tenant buildings, whether they're in a residential or whether they're commercial, but you take a multi-tenant building, say commercial, and the tenant that's in there is in there and is gone in 6 months, moved out, went out of business. We saw a lot of that in the pandemic. And who's responsible for paying that water? Well, we were billing the tenant, but the tenant's not there anymore. They use the water, but they're gone. So in other communities, and what we found is that there's actually a case law that went to the 5th District Court of Appeals, which is our Court of Appeals district. And they ruled that as long as the municipality's ordinances reflect who is responsible for the water costs and charges, and it specifies that the property owner is ultimately responsible. I mean, they can still get their tenant to pay, but if they don't pay, who's ultimately responsible? If the language is in the ordinances, then we can go to the property owner and compel them to pay for the tenant that didn't. The way our ordinances are now, we don't have that ability. We end up eating it and writing it off. We don't know, I just know from our work on the pandemic that, there was a lot of that, on the commercial side, but we do see it on the residential side. So for instance, say you have an apartment building with, 30 units in it, and there's a water meter going to each unit, but there's only one shutoff valve to the building. So apartment number 4 doesn't pay their water bill. And we go through the processes that we've talked before, but ultimately we get to a point where they're not paying. Are we supposed to turn the water off to the other 29 units who are paying? Obviously we can't do that. So what we have to do is ultimately kick it back to the property owner that, hey, your tenant didn't pay, you're ultimately responsible. And that's what this ordinance does, cleans that up.
Hey, Patrick, Dom here. So like, let's say, like you have a building, like a home, and I got gas on, I got electric on, I got city water and trash, all coming. It's not just water, it's water, sewer, trash, right? If it's in the city. So if I don't pay, like if I'm renting the house or the unit and I don't pay my electric bill or my gas bill, what happens to that then? That follows them, right? Doesn't it? That doesn't go back to the homeowner or the landlord.
We're talking about, those are private utilities, Tom. So we're talking about municipal owned utility.
Okay,
so the rules are
like,
different.
There used to be what's called a duplicate bill. So like, for example, I don't know how they do it now, but I thought
a duplicate bill is sent, but a duplicate bill does not confer responsibility to pay. The ordinance have to have that.
It just shows the owner that someone's not paying their bill and you better get involved. Right. And then worst case scenario, if it doesn't get paid, then the lien goes against the homeowner, correct?
Yeah.
No, or not now.
Well, not now, but you mentioned gas. The gas people do that. The gas people will hunt you down if you're the owner, no matter who was there before. If they couldn't pay and they bolted, they will go after the homeowner to get that gas bill. I know that personally. I have a good friend of mine. And Alliance is like this. Alliance is just like this. And it's actually a good thing for the actual landlord, because he's got to keep count then, because people bolt. And they bolt because they can't afford the rent. You think they're going to pay the water bill after they leave? No. So a lot of landlords put it in there, a certain amount actually in their lease to make sure that the water bill is covered, and they kind of work that out kind of thing. So I think this is a really good thing in many different respects, especially for us, so we're not leaving hanging when somebody bolts and takes off or can't afford to pay.
Is this problem, Pat, or Gina, whoever knows about all this? Are we seeing a lot of this where people are stiffing us with water bills? And with our electronic water reading, can't we see like on a grid when something doesn't look right that would kind of red flag it pretty quick?
Well, Dom, certainly you're talking about two different issues. All right. First, you're talking about, high flow of water that's unexplained, and that has nothing to do with their bill. Yes, we have the AMI system installed that helps identify that. And if I might just digress 2 minutes to share with you a very moving story. But this year, just a few months ago, the utility clerks came in and checked their stations and saw that over the weekend, there was a very high usage that was unexplained at a condominium in North Canton. And the read showed that like 80,000 gallons of water were used over the weekend. And normally this condominium only uses the minimum for the month, which is like, 3,000 is with the build minimum. And they don't use that. Now 80,000 is used. So the clerks reached out to the president of the homeowner association, who agreed, there's something must be going on there. They would go over and check. They went over and checked, knocked on the door, no answer. Checked the garage, the vehicle was there. Knocked again, no answer. Called the HOA president, called the North Canton Police Department to ask for a wellness check. RPD went out. Same process, no answer. Police forced their way in. They discovered someone who had fallen and was unable to get up or move, and the water had been left running. And it was running for 3 days. It had fallen in the bathtub. The person was very severely in a bad way. North Canton Fire EMS was called to the scene, transported to the hospital. The individual has recovered, but that process saved a person's life. He would have, that person would have died otherwise. So that process works. It's ongoing. But as far as the other, I'm not quite sure what we're trying, to avoid, Dom. That
I just wondered, is this a big problem?
It's a problem. It shouldn't be. Why should it be? Even if it's only, say, out of 10,000 water customers, say 50 people don't pay their bill and skate on it, and they're tenants. Why wouldn't we want the landlord to be responsible? The water was used. We have a cost associated with that. And somebody has to pay.
Okay, gotcha. I just wanted to make sure I'm clear. I didn't know if that was that big of a deal, but I guess it sounds like it's a bigger deal than you guys want.
It's a bigger, it's not as big a deal in residential units because, the residents units don't usually, use a lot of water for the most part. But where it really hurts is in the, commercial buildings where there are multiple tenants and a business uses a lot of water. and then they don't pay and then they leave or they go bankrupt. And, we're left out. But, that bill could have been paid by the property owner. I think it's a matter of, equity, fair equity. They shouldn't be able to not pay. Property is owned by a, multi-billion-dollar corporation. Pay
it. There's no reason for us to assume that liability. That is crazy.
Yep.
I agree.
Good point. Yeah. Good, Pat. Any other discussion? Does everybody understand what we're trying to do?
Yeah.
Okay.
The only other point that I would like to add to our proposal was we would like for this to be effective January 1st, because we understand that a lot of landlords have some maybe tenant relationships or lease agreements that they will need time to amend and put into place before the end of the year. So timing wise, we're looking towards the beginning of the year for this as well.
Good point.
Okay.
Any other discussion? Sounds like we have just enough approval to get this on. I don't see any reason we wouldn't.
I move we put it on the agenda.
Let's put it on the agenda. All in favor?
Is there a second first?
A second. Troy seconds.
Now all in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Goes to the agenda. Okay, folks, that concludes our meeting. Great discussion tonight. So entertain a motion to adjourn.
Laren, second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We are adjourned. Have a great evening, everybody.
Thanks,
You
Jerry.
too, guys. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Hey,
Bye-bye.
Dominic, you still there? Dominic?